How's it going, everyone? I'm Pittsburgh Sean, and I've decided that I am going to be seeing how good I am at making predictions about stuff when it comes to the playoffs this year. So therefore, I'm going to make a playoff prediction video. A lot of other people on YouTube have been doing this as well. I'm just doing it for myself. I'm just going to see how good I am at making these predictions. It's only, it's a self-competition. I'm not competing with anyone else to see if I get a better record or anything. I'm just seeing how I stack up, how smart I am, how dumb I am. Last year, I actually predicted the playoffs quite well, although I did not make videos on here. I just said to my head and on my Facebook, who would win, who would lose, and I got them pretty good, actually, although I did predict the Super Bowl wrong. I thought the Patriots would win the Super Bowl last time, but the Giants ended up winning. But this time we'll see how good I am. Like I said, how this is going to work is I'm going to do it week by week. I'm not going to give you my Super Bowl picks or any of that stuff yet. I'm going to let the playoffs play out until we get to that point. Okay, so that's pretty much how we're going to do stuff here. So I will do the playoff wild card first, and we'll go from there. But before we get into the picks, we are going to take a look at your matchups and how the final playoff standings look. Okay, I made a graphic. It's not a great graphic, but it's a graphic, and you could see from there who's where and what's going on. And if you didn't already know, you probably already know, but I'll recap it. This is the final playoff bracket, and we'll get going. So here you go. Now on the NFC side, as you can see, the Green Bay Packers and your Washington Redskins are the winners of their respective divisions, the NFC North and the NFC East. The Green Bay Packers will take on their division rivals, the Minnesota Vikings, in what will be a 3 versus 6 spot. That is your primetime NBC night game for tomorrow. Then Sunday's late game is going to be between the Washington Redskins and the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks clinched the 5th spot after beating the 49ers a couple of weeks ago up in the Space Needle. They finish on a high note and go, I believe, 11-5 or 10-6 or one of those records. I can't believe I forgot that. But anyway, your buys for this week are the Atlanta Falcons and the 49ers. And for the 49ers, it is a well-deserved, much-needed buy after getting banged up towards the end of the year with Vernon Davis having concussions and Justin Smith injuring his triceps. He refused to get a surgery and will play in the playoffs and will get a surgery following the end of their playoff run. So the Falcons and 49ers with much deserved and in the 49ers case, well needed bye. And as I said, for this week, it'll be the Packers, Vikings, and Redskins, Seahawks. Headlines for this weekend: the Packers and Vikings, you had Adrian Peterson 9 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's rushing title, but going against Rodgers and a high-powered Green Bay offense should be a fun evening. And then on the other side, you have the Washington Redskins and Seattle Seahawks, both with rookie quarterbacks. Seattle Seahawks is favored, believe it or not, the only road team to be favored this week. They are favored by 3, according to the Las Vegas bookies. Okay, everyone. For the AFC, as you can see by the final brackets for the AFC playoffs, it will be the Houston Texans at the number 3 seed, and they will be taking on the 6 seed Cincinnati Bengals, and what will be a pretty interesting matchup scheduled for 4:30 tomorrow. For Sunday's action, the early game will be the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts, the 4th seed and the 5th seed. The Baltimore Ravens ended up winning the AFC North despite going on a little tailspin towards the end, but regaining their footing against the Giants and clinching the final spot in the AFC North playoffs. So they get the AFC North playoffs. Bengals clinched the final spot week 16. Denver enjoys a first-round bye, as does New England. The road through the playoffs will go through the Mile High City. The Mile High altitude could be a factor for any team going through. For whatever reason, players have said that is a difficult place to play in because of the altitude. So we shall see what happens there. Of course, going into Foxborough is always going to be a challenge, and therefore whoever wins, if the Texans win, they automatically go to New England. If the Bengals win, then it'll be between Baltimore and Indianapolis, who gets to go up to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots. So that is your AFC playoff bracket. As we said, the Texans and the Bengals 3 and 6, and then the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts number 4 and 5. Headlines for the AFC include the Colts ending on a high note, but Ray Lewis announcing his retirement. And then on the other side, you have the Texans, who fell apart towards the end, while the Cincinnati Bengals are riding high into the postseason for the second straight year. And now for our first matchup and my prediction for this matchup, we have the Houston Texans and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm playing in the first AFC playoff game, first playoff game period in the wild card. The game will be played at 4:30 Saturday, which is tomorrow, in Houston, Texas at Reliance Stadium. And the game will be broadcasted on NBC, National Broadcasting Channel. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Houston Texans started the year very strong, looked like they were going to get the first seed, but then completely fell apart and then fell into the third seed after losing to the Minnesota Vikings, the New England Patriots, and the Indianapolis Colts the final week of the season. And the Indianapolis Colts, they have never won in Indianapolis during their franchise tenure. So with that collapse, the Texans now will have to play the third seed and a wild card game, and if they win, they will head up to Foxborough instead of the other way around. And in Foxborough, they got routed 42-14 the last time, so the playoff expectations for the Texans have dimmed quite significantly. That said, the Cincinnati Bengals have yet to playoff game in 20 years. They are riding high right now, beating a lot of teams, including the Steelers and the Ravens, to finish out strong, even though they were secured into that 6th position into the wild card. Last year, when they played the Houston Texans, the result was not too good. The Texans pretty much routed them before they went to Baltimore and lost in a close matchup there. But this year, a lot is different this time. That, like I said, the Texans aren't that hot, and then you have the Cincinnati Bengals, who are definitely much hotter than they were last year. They should be a formidable opponent. They have a good pass rush. They're making their team work. But on the other side, you have the Houston Texans and high-powered, with those high-powered weapons, J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, and Arian Foster. Should be a good matchup. But in the end, in Houston, I am predicting that the home team will win. They are favored by 4.5 points. I will not predict any of these games based on spreads. I'll just predict a winner, a simple winner, and I say the Houston Texans will win. Push me for a score, I will say they win 24-17. I just think Houston's a little bit better still than the Bengals, even though the Bengals are hotter right now. No disrespect to the Bengals, because they are a good team and they beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So I have no disrespect for them, but I just think the Houston Texans are a little bit better. So therefore, that is my prediction for the AFC Wildcard Saturday. Texans should win, I say 24-17. As for the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, this is your NFC playoff matchup, the first NFC game in the wild card, and will be played on a Saturday at 8 p.m. It'll be in Green Bay, Wisconsin at the historical place Lambeau Field, which was the home of the famous Ice Bowl. And the game will be played on the national broadcasting channel, NBC. Now, for this matchup, it is pretty tempting here. Two pretty good offenses on the Green Bay side. It is because of their quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, who had another spectacular year. Don't know the stats particularly or specifically, but had another awesome year and definitely is in a good position to make another run through the postseason and on to the Super Bowl. But on the other side, you have the Minnesota Vikings with Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson, as mentioned, was just 9 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing record, and this was just after coming off a blown-out leg. He came back ready for training camp just about a half year later and made a magnificent run and pretty much single-handedly brought the Vikings into the postseason as your 6th spot. In this game, the Packers are favored by 7.5 points. The last I checked on Vegas, I am going to take the Packers myself. I say they will win I would say a pretty high scoring game for the Packers. I would say they get 34. The Vikings will get 21. The Vikings, like I said, are much improved from last year. Christian Ponder played a pretty good game in the Metrodome, but remember, that was the Metrodome we are talking about. The Packers are back at home. I think they don't lose at home. I think they are just a better team than the Vikings are on paper. So I got to go with the Green Bay Packers to beat the Vikings, although I do hope that it goes the other way around, obviously. But that is my take on the NFC playoff picture. Like I said, it'll be Green Bay, and I will predict them to win pretty easily. They're just a better team, and they're at home. I just can't see them losing 2 weeks in a row to the same opponent. So Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings. I say Green Bay, but I do give Minnesota credit. I hope they win, and I will be rooting for them because I'm still a little sore about Super Bowl 45. But if you look at it realistically, you got to go with the Green Bay Packers in this matchup. All right, for this game, we have the Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts. For the AFC, the second wild card game in the AFC, and it'll be played on Sunday, 1 o'clock p.m. in Baltimore, and it'll be on CBS. And this is going to be a pretty interesting matchup. I mean, you have two teams that are going to be handling some adversity this weekend. On one side, you have the Baltimore Ravens, who Ray Lewis just announced this week that he will be retiring, and rumors are circling that Ray Lewis has inked a deal to be an ESPN analyst. And then on the other side, you have Chuck Pagano and his leukemia. I mean, he came back for the last game against the Texans and pretty much dominated that game at home. And of course, it's going to be interesting to see which team of adversity will win and what emotion will carry them higher. The game, like I said, is in Baltimore for the AFC playoffs. Now, on paper, if you look at the teams, the Ravens just look like a better team on paper. They have some of the playmakers like Ed Reed and of course Ray Lewis. They're going to get back. Terrell Suggs is going to be playing. Nada, and then you have Torrey Smith on the other side along with Ray Rice. They just are a loaded team, and like I said, being a Steeler fan, I know how much problems they are for us, for my squad. So it's going to be an interesting game. On the other side, you have Andrew Luck. I mean, he had a pretty good year, passed for 4,000 yards, I believe. Plus, he was pretty proficient as a quarterback, although turnovers have been a problem for him. Offensive line is decimated, and like I said, that should help the pass rush for the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be an interesting game. Like I said, it's in Baltimore, but what I've mentioned with the Colts offensive line being depleted and Andrew Luck's turnover problems, I think the Baltimore Ravens will win this game. I would say probably on the line of 20-13. That's my prediction. The Ravens are favored by 6.5 points, I think the last I saw on the Vegas spread. So they are favored by quite a bit. I'm going 7. I think 20-13. Baltimore will get the job done. Like I said, I just think they're just a better overall football team than the Indianapolis Colts are. So I think the Baltimore Ravens get it done. That's it. Like the last one, I am rooting for the underdog. I am rooting for the Indianapolis Colts to do it, but I just don't think there is enough on the Indianapolis Colts to get the job done. Andrew Luck will have to have a good day and cannot turn the ball over. I think that's the difference. I just think there are more playmakers on the Ravens side. So 20-13, Baltimore Ravens. That's my prediction, and I predict them to move on to the next round. And finally, in what most NFL experts are claiming as the game of the week, you have the Washington Redskins taking on the Seattle Seahawks down in our nation's capital. And the game will be Sunday at 4:30 p.m. in D.C. on Fox. So, with that in mind, this is an interesting matchup. You have two rookie quarterbacks. Russell Wilson for the Seattle Seahawks, and of course, the RG3 for the Washington Redskins. This is going to be an interesting matchup, considering you have two rookies. On one side, you have two good backs too, Morris, the Redskins, and on the other side, you obviously have Marshawn Lynch for the Seattle Seahawks. Just good playmakers around. Both defenses have been playing better, but the Seahawks have been playing a little bit better on defense than the Redskins have, but the Redskins have improved in that area, although they did play Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys in Washington. It's going to be an interesting game. Like I said, it is in Washington, and therefore you think a home game matters. The Seahawks are a little bit tougher right now. They're hotter, it seems, than the Redskins are, although the Redskins won 7 straight. This is a very tough game for me, folks. I don't know which way I'm going. I flip-flopped a few times on this. I just think the Vegas odds, the Las Vegas has the Seattle Seahawks favored to win by 3 points. This is the only road team that is favored to win this game. Of course, the injury to RG3's knee, that's a problem. Really is going to be interesting there. It's a tough call. It really is a tough call to make. But I say, if you had to push me, I would say probably this is really tough. I think in the end, I see Seattle doing it. I think they will squeak by the Redskins for some reason, although the Seahawks are pretty bad on the road. I just think the Seahawks are a little better on defense, and I think in the end, with two rookie quarterbacks and two pretty prolific offenses running the ball, I think Seattle's defense is going to be a little bit better, and I think that's going to be the difference in this football game. I say Seattle probably wins 20-17. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes to overtime as well, but I say Seattle wins 20-17 in this matchup. 20-17 Seattle. Very tough game for me to predict. I've flip-flopped on this a few times this week, but I just think the Seahawks are a little better than the Redskins are currently. So those are my playoff picks for this week. Again, I say the Texans win. I say the Packers win. I say the Ravens win, and I will go with Seattle in the final matchup. Those are my playoff picks this weekend. Let me know what you think about them and what you think's going to happen. But for now, have a good weekend and enjoy the matchups, everyone. Enjoy the matchups.